Okay, we're good to go on my end.
Thank you. So I think we're ready. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Good afternoon. My name is Allison McKenzie, and I am the chair of the Historic Conservation Board. I would like to take a minute to remind everyone about the rules of this proceeding. This proceeding is at all times governed by the rules of procedure adopted by the board on September 26, 2011, or I'm sorry, 2011, amended March 23rd, 2015, last amended March 9th, 2020. A copy of the rules of procedure is available for review online. All those planning to testify today, which does not include those solely making arguments, such as attorneys, should stand and take an oath administered by the board's attorney. This is a quasi-judicial hearing. As such, the board reserves the right to deliberate in private. The Ohio Rules of Evidence do not apply to this hearing. However, professional rules of conduct do apply, and candor to the tribunal is required. The board members are citizen volunteers and are not paid for their service. They are treated as public officials under Ohio law. Any attempt to influence them, including but not limited to bribery, intimidation, retaliation, which may include contacting their employer in an attempt to exert influence, is punishable as a crime. All should be aware that this meeting is being recorded. Therefore, please speak clearly into your microphone and state your name and address for the record. In the event of any technical difficulties with the video conferencing technology, I may continue or postpone this hearing at my discretion. All participants providing testimony must have both camera and audio features turned on in order to participate. With that said, let's proceed with the first item.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 1 is an application for a certificate of appropriateness and zoning relief at 6110 Hamilton Avenue. This is located in the College Hill Mid-Business Historic District. And it is an application for an outdoor area for an existing bar and restaurant use. So the current tenant would like to expand their offerings to the rear area, which abuts a parking lot to the rear of the site. So in the corner here, you can see the existing business, and this is the proposed location of the outdoor area. As it is within 100 feet of a residential zoning district located to the east, it does require a use permit in the form-based code for an outdoor area, as well as a use permit for outdoor entertainment that is proposed. So you can see on the screen now, this is the current business with this parking lot area, which is blacktopped up to the building. They would like to take a portion of that blacktop space and convert it into an outdoor area. It would have metal fencing surrounding the area as the enclosure, as well as poles that would support string lights over that outdoor dining area. They would like to have ambient background music on speakers and would also like to reserve the right to have occasional live music performances. The live music performances would be limited to the hours of operation to the restaurant, which are currently 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. on Friday and Saturday. Due to the small size of the outdoor area and its location adjacent to a residential district, staff would recommend that any outdoor area be limited to acoustic performances only. But otherwise, staff does not have any substantial concerns with the project, either from a COA standpoint or a zoning relief standpoint. So with that being said, staff does recommend approval of the use permit for an outdoor area within 100 feet of a T4 transect, and also recommends approval of the use permit for outdoor entertainment within 500 feet of a T4 transect with the following conditions: that 1, outdoor entertainment is limited to the current operating hours of the business, specifically 3 p.m. to 10 p.m. Sunday through Thursday, and 3 p.m. to 11 p.m. Friday and Saturday. And 2, live music performances shall be limited to acoustic sound. Staff also recommends the approval of a certificate of appropriateness for 6110 Hamilton Avenue, including any revisions submitted for permit subject to staff review and approval with the condition that the building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date or the COA shall expire.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. It looks like we do have an applicant signed up. Mr. Stoughton, would you like to add anything today? Okay. Are there any questions by the board for either the applicant or staff? If none, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve both the zoning relief and the certificate of appropriateness.
I'll second that.
I'll call the roll. Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Zalesko,
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Checking to see if we have any other board members on the call. I do not see any. The chair also votes aye and the motion passes. Thank you very much. We'll move on to item number 2.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for zoning relief only for 635 Main Street. This is located in the Main Street Historic District in the downtown neighborhood. That is an existing mixed-use building with residential on the upper floors and a vacant commercial storefront on the ground floor. So the applicant is requesting a locational variance to allow ground floor office use. In this part of the DD zoning district, office uses are not permitted as a principal ground floor use because it's in a commercial continuity overlay. So the desire is to have retail or restaurant tenants in these areas to provide more activation of the street space. So the applicant is proposing to have ground floor office use on the property. The first and second floors altogether would both be converted to office use, with the upper 2 floors remaining residential. The main office spaces would be located on the second floor, and the ground floor would be used to house a reception area, entertainment and gathering area, conference rooms, a social kitchen, bathrooms, and scanning and storage areas. There may be one accessible office space located on the ground floor if it is needed to avoid having to deal with stairs to get up to the main office level on the second floor. So there are no current changes proposed to the exterior of the building. So this is a request for zoning relief only. So the applicant has submitted materials arguing for the validity of having the office space on the ground floor. The building has the first floor space of the building has been vacant since at least 2020 when the former tenant vacated the premises. And the owner has not been able to identify a new tenant to move into the building that would meet the zoning code. So the application is submitted now to allow that ground floor office use. So while staff does generally feel that retail uses are the best use in this scenario, we feel that the applicant has presented substantial evidence that shows that a tenant has not been able to be signed for that ground floor commercial space. So with that and the layout of the building offering the more active office spaces on the ground floor, such as the reception area and the entertainment and gathering area, the social kitchen, things along those lines, staff feels that it will still have some level of activation of the streetscape. So with that combined with the difficulty in signing a tenant, staff does feel that this zoning relief is appropriate. So we do recommend approval of the locational variance to allow the ground floor office use.
Have a few folks signed up. We do have the applicant and owner, Mr. Christopher Finney. Would you like to add anything to what staff has told us?
Yeah, first of all, Mr. Owen's been great to work with. I think you guys probably know he's a fantastic.
Thank
Oh.
you. Sorry,
Am I muted?
Sworn in.
No, to the chair, but Mr. Finney, are you representing the applicant and the owner in your attorney capacity?
Well, the owner is actually my wife of the LLC owns the property. My wife owns the LLC, and I represent all of them. So yes,
Let me go ahead and just get you sworn in, if you don't mind. Raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. Now please proceed.
Okay. As I said, I think you all probably know you're very well served by Mr. Owen on this and other matters. I've enjoyed working with him, and he's of great knowledge and tremendously good humor to deal with me on this and all my anxieties about this project. So it's been very good, number one. Number two, he said that the third and fourth floor are residential. The building has never, to my knowledge, been occupied as a residence. And at present, it is a shell that is, as my architect describes, 4 shoe boxes stacked on top of each other. There's absolutely nothing there. But the plan is to, in fact, put residential on 3 and 4, and office and conference facilities on 1 and 2. I'm very excited about the project. I've invested a lot of money and time and a lot of hopes in this thing. And hopefully we're going to get the building permit this week. I'm just waiting for my final MEP drawings. And we've been awarded state and federal historic tax credits. Our plan is to, we have preliminarily been told we have commercial tax abatement. And obviously I'm going to go for residential abatement on the upper 2 units. We're going to turn the building into condos, but I'll be owning it for at least 5 years under the tax abatement, under the tax credit program. And my plan, currently my law firm has offices in Eastgate and Mount Adams. We have about 4 or 5 people at Mount Adams and about 14 people at Eastgate, something like that on a daily basis. Then I have another dozen people who work from home and come into the various offices every now and then. And our plan is to put about 6 to 8 full-time employees downtown and move our Mount Adams office downtown. And that is the design. But ultimately, kind of the deciding factor about this whole project was the cost of the elevator. Originally, my plan was to put offices either on the whole building or maybe 2 of the other floors. And when I decided to go without an elevator for ADA purposes and just practical operating purposes, it was important to have people coming in, signing a will, coming in for a deposition, whatever, who didn't need to scale stairs on that first floor. So as I said to Mr. Owens, we have 2 choices. One is I can have a for rent sign in that first floor space for the next 20 years, or we can put a vibrant law firm and title insurance company there. And that is our present plan.
We do have one member of the public signed up. Before we proceed to him, would any board members like to ask any questions of the applicant or staff? Hearing none, we will move on to hearing from Danny Klingler. Would you like to add something today? If so, we'll get you sworn in. Mr. Klingler? If you're speaking, you are muted. No, he signed in. Mr. Sturkey, any procedures I should be aware of here? Should we just move forward?
I sent a message
Cassandra.
to unmute or start his video, but I haven't gotten a response.
Yeah, there is no special procedure here. If someone's not present when it's their opportunity to speak, I think they forfeit that opportunity.
Okay, well, hearing that, unless there are any other questions, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve the location.
Looks like he may have just, sorry.
Mr. Klingler, did you want to add something? If so, we'll get you sworn in here.
Which agenda item are we on?
Number 2.
I think I was here for the one at 1406 Elm.
I don't have the addresses in front of me. Mr. Owen,
That would
is
be
that-
item number 3.
Yeah,
Okay.
item number 3.
Great.
Thank
we
you.
will wait and I will call you again for 3.
Thank
Okay.
you.
I'm sorry. I think there was a motion being made.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I'll move that we approve the locational variance for 635 Main Street.
Second.
Thank you. I will call the roll. Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Zelasco,
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Mr. Young.
Aye.
Chair votes aye as well. The motion passes. Good luck with your project.
Thank you, everybody. Appreciate it.
Good luck.
Now on to item number 3, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness and zoning relief for 1406 Elm Street in the Over the Rhine Historic District. The property is currently a 2.5-story building located on Elm Street. The applicant is proposing an addition to the building that would expand the 1/2-story at the top into a full 3rd story, as well as a rear and side 1-story garage addition with a rooftop deck above. They're also proposing a canopy above the side entry to the new rear garage. And as part of the construction, the addition will require the removal of a mature tree. So there is zoning relief involved in the project as it does exceed the setback requirements. So there is a side yard, excuse me, a side yard setback variance of 3 feet minimum and 6 feet total for the proposed 0 setbacks on the side. And then there's also a rear yard setback request for 20 feet for the proposed a dimensional variance of 17 feet for the proposed 3-foot setback, which is short of the 20 feet required. So on the screen, you can see the proposed addition that is on that 1/2-story. It is set back from the front facade of the building so as not to be visible when viewed from the street. At the rear is the 1-story garage addition with the rooftop deck that would be above, that it has a parapet wall serving as the required railing. Both the additions will be clad in a fiber cement lap siding to offset it from the original construction. And then on the elevations, you can see this is the original construction. So there will be an alteration to the roof line along this section as it is cut back to allow for the windows that would be on the 3rd story to allow more light into that new living space. So again, this is the 1-story garage, and this would be the canopy that is over that side door entry leading to the garage space. So staff does feel that while this is a fairly substantial change to the building, it does substantially meet the Over the Rhine conservation guidelines, primarily through the siding of the addition, where, as I mentioned previously, the sight line you can see from across the street. It will not allow the visibility of that third story addition because it is set back along that existing front roof slope, so that the sight line will clear the new addition. The side addition will be slightly visible through the small setback area here, but it is only a small portion that will be visible. So staff does not feel that that will create any adverse effects on the surrounding contributing properties. Likewise, with the zoning relief that's requested, this is a common form of zoning relief that's often requested in historic districts because the current building does not meet the existing zoning setbacks for that area. So this is not substantially expanding on any existing condition other than extending it slightly, extending it to that side lot line at the rear of the lot for the garage addition. So the garage itself, the access point will be from the rear alley with a plain metal garage door. So that is the most appropriate place for vehicular access. So staff does not have issues with that. So with that being said, staff does recommend approval of the dimensional variance of 3 feet minimum and 6 feet total for the proposed 0 side setbacks. Staff recommends approval of the rear yard setback of 17 feet for the proposed 3-foot setback. And staff recommends approval of a certificate of appropriateness for 1406 Elm Street, including a revision submitted for permit, subject to staff review and approval, with the condition that the building permit must be issued within 2 years of the decision date, or the COA shall expire.
Thank you. We do have an applicant, Mr. Hampton, and an owner, Mr. Gray, signed up. If either of you would like to add anything, let's please get you sworn in.
Yes,
If you could raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
What would you like to tell us, please?
Thank you. I think Doug explained it pretty well. The garage addition, we did look at trying to keep that offset to preserve that kind of alley access. However, the depth of the building from the alley really precludes that, as well as trying to maintain code required egress opening for a first floor bedroom. So that really determined the siting of our garage, of shifting it to the south on the lot there to have enough turn radius in and to maintain egress there. As Doug mentioned, the third floor addition, we worked hard to maintain that to minimize the visibility from Elm Street. So we did not add any square footage in the front of the building and kept that entire addition to the rear to try to maintain the look as much as possible. Thank you.
Did you want to add anything?
Nothing, I guess officially, if you still want to swear in, I can.
Yes, let's please get you sworn
Sure.
in.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. Steve said it best, but I just want to say I've been really happy to be here. I've been downtown for a couple of years now. And, when I found that place, I really wanted to make it my home. My fiance and I plan on continuing to stay there, raise kids, all of the things. So just happy to be a part of everything and really love the process. So I appreciate the opportunity.
Great, thank you. We do have, it looks like, a couple of neighbors or members of the public signed up. I'll go back to Mr. Klingler.
Yes, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, and let's get you sworn in, please.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
If you could raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please
Okay,
proceed.
thank you. Thank you. My name is Danny Klingler. I'm representing the Queen of the West LLC, which owns 3 properties on Magnolia, as the managing member, and then I'm representing OTR Adopt as the founder and executive director. So I have a concern about this being one of the few archetypal OTR buildings that's pre-Civil War, and I think that the addition is going too far in altering the original building. And so I created a couple of visual aids for you guys to see what the original building looks like, with its kind of front of the building being the tallest and widest, and then it telescopes down to something a little bit less, and then finally it ends up with the shortest and narrowest part of the building in the back. And that hierarchy is what we see throughout over the Rhine and throughout these Italianate and other types of buildings. And I think that's really important to maintain. And it's not that I think that an addition can't be built, it's that I think that this is too much, and there are ways to do it more nuanced. And the guidelines state that additions should be compatible in character with the original, and that they should not overpower the original building. So I wanted to compare this that I showed you with what the new proposal is. And so you can kind of see how the hierarchy is going to be pretty dramatically changed of this 1859 building. In addition, all of the areas in red that you see here are where original 1859 brick is being removed. And I think that's part of the problem here, and one of the issues I have here. You see it on the north facade. And here you see it from the rear where the sawtooth is being removed on that middle section that kind of represents the middle. And so I think the biggest issue for me is the removal of historic brick. That would help a lot to not remove it. And the drawings show it being removed. And then finally, just with the size of the, just like I said, with the hierarchy of the building being changed now from, biggest, middle, smallest to something that has a whole new architectural language and form is really problematic for me. I've talked to the owners, to Sam and his fiance, Lisa. They're very nice. I hope to continue the dialogue, but there hasn't been enough time to continue it. So I told them I would probably be speaking today and it wasn't anything personal. I definitely don't object to them coming to the neighborhood. And then lastly, the garage, I think is, in objection to the, doesn't fit the letter of the law in terms of being necessary for historic preservation with the zoning variance. If the other things were corrected or addressed, I would not object to the garage being located where it is. Thank you very much.
We do have one more member of the public signed up, Max Schimberg. If you'd like to add anything, let's get you sworn in, please.
Is Max here?
Oh, sorry, I missed the lack of an X. Sorry about that. I think that is it. So are there any questions or comments for the applicant's staff or members of the public before we entertain a motion? If not, I will entertain a motion.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve both the zoning relief and the certificate of appropriateness.
Second.
I will call the roll. Ms. Smith,
Yes.
Mr. Zelasco,
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
the chair abstained. Oh, sorry,
I'll-
Mr. Young.
I'll vote aye as well.
Okay, thank you. It passes. Thank you, and hope you have success with your project.
For the record, Ms. Chair, was that an abstention from you at the end?
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
Next one is item number 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is an application for a certificate of appropriateness and zoning relief for 1715 Elm Street in the Over the Rhine Historic District. This is an application for a new surface parking lot on an existing vacant lot.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Mr. Allen. I just want to make the record clear. I think this is item 4, correct?
Correct.
My apologies.
Sure.
Okay, so item 4, 1715 Elm Street, COA and zoning relief for a surface parking lot. This is on the northwest corner of Elm Street and Green Street in the Over the Rhine neighborhood. It is currently a vacant lot and has been for some time. And the applicant is proposing the conversion of the lot to a parking lot that would serve the residential conversion that is happening at 1725 Elm Street. It would create 9 off-street parking spaces on the lot accessed by 2 access drives. Let me share my screen. Okay, so you can see the plans on the screen here. There are 9 spaces total, 6 in the center and 3 at the west end, accessed by 2 separate access drives, one on the east end and one on the north end. Because of the dimensions of the lot, there is no space for an interior access drive to access both sides of the lot while still providing as many parking spaces as possible. So that is the reason for the 2 separate entrances. It should be noted that the 2 separate access drives that are created will result in the loss of 2 to 3 street parking spaces along Green Street. However, as I mentioned, it is ultimately providing 9 off-street parking spaces that will be utilized by the residences at 1725 Elm Street. So there is a net gain of parking in the area. So In addition to the certificate of appropriateness, there is zoning relief required for the parking lot. In this district, the CCP district conditional use approval is required for all parking lots. And also there is a special exception needed to eliminate the required 3-foot landscape buffer on the southwest and north property lines and to eliminate the 1 required tree planting. So these conditions for the special exception are primarily related to the dimensions of the lot. It is a narrow lot, and there is not enough space to provide the landscaping on both the north and the south, as well as the east and the west. So the applicant has decided to place the landscaping at the area that it would have the most impact, which is along the Elm Street frontage. So there is a landscape bed proposed along the Elm Street frontage. And then there is also a 4-foot black metal fence proposed for the perimeter along each street. There is no fence proposed along the north. The neighboring property owner, it should be noted, does currently have a 6-foot tall chain link fence. So while staff does generally not love to see new parking lots on vacant lots, they are considered to be an acceptable interim development plan for vacant lots, especially on lots that have been vacant for a substantial amount of time without attracting interest for new infill development, as parking lots are fairly easily converted to a viable building site in the future if the need and the desire should arise. Staff generally also likes to see a little more detail as far as landscaping and things along those lines to meet the COA requirements. However, due to the limited width of this lot, there is not a lot of opportunity to provide a lot of additional installations that are not related to the parking surface itself. So staff does feel that generally this is meeting the conservation guidelines as well as appropriate in the terms of the zoning relief. I should note there is opposition that staff received from the neighboring property owner to the north, who has concerns with the proximity of the parking spaces to the other property, in part because of the chance that trespassers may access the parking lot, use the vehicles that are parked along his fence as sort of a stepping stone to get over the fence and into his property. So staff does generally feel that this would be in the public interest, as it is providing 9 additional off-street parking, while there is a loss of likely 3 on-street parking spaces along Green Street that would be somewhat offset by the addition of the off-street parking on the lot itself. So staff does not have great concerns regarding the use at this lot for the conditional use approval. And as I mentioned previously, staff does feel the special exception is warranted due to the limited dimensions of the lot. So staff does recommend approval of the conditional use for the parking lot in the CCP district, as well as approval of the special exception to eliminate the required 3-foot landscape buffer on the southwest and north property lines and to eliminate the required tree planting. Staff also recommends approval of a certificate of appropriateness for 1715 Elm Street, including any revisions submitted for permit subject to staff review and approval, with the condition that 1, landscape plantings a minimum of 3 feet in height shall be planted within the eastern landscape buffer area, and 2, the building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date or the COA shall expire.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. We do have an applicant, an owner, and not sure if the Findlay Market rep, I think that's probably public. So applicant and owner, if you would like to speak, let's get you sworn in, please.
Yes.
Mr. Hampton, Mr. Hagan. Is Mr. Hagan also going to want to testify? If so, I can swear you in collectively if you want to unmute and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
There we go. I do. Sorry, I was trying to unmute.
Which of you would like to speak first, please?
I'll go ahead, just hit a couple points. As Mr. Owen mentioned, the lot is very narrow. It's 25-foot wide lot. This is basically all we can kind of fit in to make parking work and to have usable legal parking spaces. The lot has been vacant for quite a long time, since a previous non-contributing building was demolished over 10 years ago. And, it's basically just kind of a grass lot right now that's not providing any value to the neighborhood. And there is a net increase of parking. So we do feel this is an add to the neighborhood. That building that it's serving, 1725, is being occupied one way or the other. So those folks are going to be bringing more cars to the neighborhood. So overall, it is a net positive for the neighborhood in terms of parking for that.
Thank you.
And
Mr.
I'll let James mention anything about the size of the lot and the viability, if we would have to reduce the size for buffers or anything like that. Basically, makes the project not viable for the costs involved for the number of spaces.
Right. And Steve said it great there. Again, I'm James Hagan, one of the owners. To justify the cost, we've really got to get the 9 spots in there. And, the building 1725 will house 12 residential units, of which we have leases on 5 of them right now. So as Steve mentioned, people are moving in, every day as we speak, and the building will be filled soon. And it would just really help with, obviously supplying parking for people that are going to live in the area.
Thank you. Before we move on to the member of the public we have signed up, are there any questions for the applicant or staff by the board members?
Yes, Mr. Owen, could you explain again the neighbor's concern? And just so I understand this, the 6 foot, it looks like a 6 foot chain link fence is going to stay, and they're concerned about people using the cars to jump over the fence to get into that courtyard?
That's correct. That's how it was explained to me.
Did they come in together, or were those individual?
I'm sorry?
How many people brought that up? Did they come in as a group, or what?
It was just the one neighboring property owner to the north.
Thank you.
Any additional questions at this time?
Madam Chair, I have a question for the applicant owner. Have you guys considered any other parking arrangements? I know there's 550 some odd spot parking garage to the north of this site, and of course there's the Finley lots and the 3 CTC lots, and just kind of want to understand the context of, have you explored other options?
Oh, sorry, was just coming off mute. Steve, I'll let you add. Only thing that's what the other 3 or 4 tenants will have to do, is explore the other options, because we don't have enough parking for the number of tenants that are in the building.
Any other questions? If not, Mr. John Back, if you would like to add anything, please, let's get you sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, what would you like to add?
Well, good afternoon, everybody. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here. I'm actually the neighbor and property owner immediately to the north at 1717 Elm Street here in the Finley Market District of Over the Rhine. A couple points I'd like to make. The first one is that parking is not a requirement in our neighborhood. City council and their zoning officials have removed that requirement because of the streetcar and because we are a very dense urban neighborhood. It's our character. Not every single person in this neighborhood that lives in an apartment can have a car. We would just be inundated with cars. And as your colleague mentioned, there is a lot of private, for rent parking coming online in the form of massive garages. The argument that this parking lot is a net gain, I think, is a false one, because it is not a net gain for the public. It is a net gain for the private concern of the development at 1725 Elm Street. There are legitimately 4 parking spots here on Green Street, a street that has folks like myself who've been in the neighborhood for nearly 20 years, has low-income individuals too, who can't necessarily afford to rent a parking spot in a garage or from a private developer. So the fact that 3 of the 4 spots being removed, is, I guess, added to by 12 spots on this lot, that's kind of a fallacy. It's not the same folks using the lot that use the on-street parking. I guess the other thing I would say is that, given that this is a conditional use, the applicant is not entitled to this use, I would really ask you to take that into consideration about, sort of what this is doing to our neighborhood. The applicant has not provided any information about financial hardship. He said that it doesn't make economical sense to, do a reduced number of spots, but we've not seen anything that shows that. They would still be, spots that would help him lease out his building. So as far as the safety is concerned, we've had that situation occur. I have a wife and I have a young son, a 5-year-old son. And so we've actually had people scale our fence when people are parked next to it in the past. So I know someone had a question about that. I think that,
work on wrapping it up. We've got a
Sure.
2-minute limit. So
Thanks very much.
We did also have one other member of the public who signed in, Cordelia Heaney. If you'd like to add anything, let's get you sworn in, please.
Hello, I'm Cordelia Heaney with Finley Market, and we are
Ms.
not.
Ms. Heaney, if I could have you raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, now please proceed.
So we are pro additional parking in the community, and would just ask that, as parking opportunities are considered, if there is public parking that would be eliminated by construction projects, that consideration be made to adjust other parking in the area that's currently residential only on-street parking to be flex parking, to make sure that long-term there is enough parking that can be used by residents as well as by shoppers coming from other neighborhoods. So just wanted to plant that seed for any future conversations around parking.
Thank you. I do not have anyone else signed up. Are there any additional questions or discussion from the board?
Yeah, Mr. Owen, how long has that lot been vacant again? I think it was in the report earlier.
The building that previously occupied that lot was demolished in 2011.
11, thank you.
Madam Chair, can I ask Mr. Owen, is there the residential parking program, what's the extent of that in the area where this application is?
There is not a whole lot of residential permit parking only on the north side of Liberty. Most of it is on the south side of Liberty, but there is a stretch along a portion of Green Street, but not this section. And then one other cross street. I can't remember off the top of my head if that's Race or Elm, but it's in the area. But most of that residential permit parking is located south of Liberty.
But there's a program that residents could utilize.
Right, there is a residential parking permit program in Over the Rhine. So if you live in Over the Rhine, you can apply for the permit that would allow you to park in one of these residential only street spaces.
Okay.
May I make a clarification on that?
Yes. you may.
My understanding is the residential parking permit is only for those blocks, if you live on those blocks where those spots are. So I live north of Liberty. I'm not able to get a residential permit for parking spaces south of Liberty. So it only applies to those handful of buildings that the parking is spaced in front of, I believe, which is the block of Green Street east of Elm Street, I believe is where that's at.
Madam Chair, may I make a point of clarification? The expansion of Zone G for the residential parking permit does include this portion of Green Street.
Okay.
So it is for residential parking right now, and those spaces will be removed.
Thank you. Are there additional questions or discussion from the board?
I actually have one more question. How long, Mr. Hagan, owner? How long have you owned the property?
About 8-9 years, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Discussion, I will entertain a motion on this item.
Madam Chair, I'm going to propose that I'm going to move to approve the conditional use and a special exception for 1715 Elm Street.
Second.
I will call the roll. Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Zelasco,
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Young,
No.
the chair votes aye. The item passes. Thank you very much.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
that motion, I believe, was only for the zoning relief. Do we need a separate motion for the COA?
I thought I heard it in there, but maybe I was wrong. Mr. Zelasco, would you like to make a motion on the certificate of appropriateness?
Yeah, and that includes approval of the COA. Thank you.
I think we probably need to revote. Is that okay? Is there a second to the amended motion?
Second.
I'll call the roll. Ms. Smith,
Aye.
Mr. Zelasco,
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman,
Aye.
Mr. Young,
No.
chair votes aye. Okay, thank you. And we'll move on to item number 5.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Item 5 is an application for a certificate of appropriateness and zoning relief for 716 Mount Hope Avenue. The property is a historic landmark building known as the Moore Knight House. And the applicant is proposing a new accessory building on the property. Let me share my screen. This property has been before the board a couple times previously for work on the main house, including an addition to the north, as well as rebuilding the porch on the south side. Both of those projects were previously approved. The current proposal is for the proposed carriage house shown on the north side of the site that is along Bushnell Street on a little panhandle that extends out to that side street. It would also include a 6-foot screen fence surrounding this area, as well as new landscaping, a new retaining wall, and a new paver stone driveway. So as part of the project, there is zoning relief required in the form of a locational variance for an accessory residential structure in the corner side yard. There's also a dimensional variance for the size of the accessory structure. Accessory structures are limited to 800 square feet for residential uses. The proposed structure is 1,830 square feet. There is also a dimensional variance of 2 feet for a 6-foot fence and a corner side yard, which is in excess of the 4 feet permitted. And then finally, a dimensional variance of 50% for a 100% opaque privacy fence in the same area, exceeding the 50% limit. So the accessory structure is proposed currently on a vacant portion of that lot. It is substantial in size, however, it is replacing a former accessory structure that was located a little further south on the site near the location of the existing detention pond now. That was a smaller structure, but it was a substantial size, definitely over the 800 square feet. It was likely around 1,300 square feet based on previous aerial maps. So that was located here due to its condition. That structure was demolished several years ago. And the applicant, throughout the process of working on the primary house, had intended to rebuild the carriage house in this area. It was shown as proposed on previous plans that went to the board, so it was never reviewed. So staff does feel that this is generally an appropriate location for an accessory structure of this size, as it is set off to the side of the property. It will not impact any views, significant views towards the main house. And the orientation of the existing house is somewhat different from what you would typically expect with a house along Mount Hope as the frontage, because it is built along the hilltop and Price Hill, and it does face east to overlook the Mill Creek Valley and Cincinnati. So the house is oriented to the east, but it's technically its front yard is on the west. So this carriage house is in a non-permitted location, which is what requires that locational variance. The carriage house is within the height allowances of 15 feet measured to the midpoint of the gable for zoning purposes. It is proposed to have fiber cement lap siding. This was a change after the application was submitted. It was initially proposed with a metal siding material. The applicant did change that to a fiber cement lap siding to better fit the historic context and be in similar construction to the original carriage house that was on the property. It will have the 2 metal overhead doors as well as a small patio, covered patio entry with the pedestrian door on the side. The landscaping that is proposed along the boundaries of the property will help to screen that further from the surrounding properties along Bushnell and Mount Hope. And really the main concern that staff would have with this project would be the 6-foot wood privacy fence that does surround this and this little panhandle bump out. Staff does not necessarily have concerns with the material itself, but I do have a concern with it extending all the way out to Bushnell Street. Zoning regulations require privacy fences to be either in a side yard or a rear yard of a property, with front or street facing fencing being only 4 feet tall and 50% solid, so that it preserves an open front yard feel for residential properties. So staff would recommend that 6-foot solid privacy fence be set back so that it does not extend in front of the Bushnell of the house adjacent to the west along Bushnell Street. But that would be staff's really mainly our only main condition. The retaining wall, it's called out as a new block wall. This has already been built, and it is a stone-faced wall. And the driveway that will access the garage will be built of pavers. So staff does not have concerns with either of those elements. And let's see, we do also have several letters of support as well as several letters of opposition on this property. The majority of the neighboring property owners that are adjacent to the garage on the north and west side of Mount Hope have submitted letters of support. The letters of opposition have come from the property to the south that borders the property at this location. So with that being said, staff does recommend approval of the locational variance for the accessory residential structure in the corner side yard with the following condition: that during construction, a wall check must be provided by a licensed surveyor at the time of the footing placement. This is a condition that was suggested by the buildings department to ensure no issues during construction. We also recommend approval of a dimensional variance of 1,030 square feet for an accessory residential structure totaling 1,830 square feet. And recommend approval of a dimensional variance of 2 feet for a 6-foot fence in the corner side yard, with the condition that the fence shall be set back from the Bushnell Street lot line to be no closer to the street than the front wall of the adjacent building at 2609 Bushnell Street. And recommend approval of the dimensional variance of 50% for a 100% opaque privacy fence in the corner side yard with the same condition. On the certificate of appropriateness, staff recommends approval for the COA for 716 Mount Hope with the following conditions: that the composite material on the accessory garage shall have a smooth finish and not have a faux wood grain, and that the building permits must be issued within 2 years of the decision date or the COA shall expire.
Thank you, Mr. Owen. We do have 3 representatives from the applicant and 2 representatives from the owner here. If any of you would like to add to what Mr. Owen has said, let's go ahead and get you sworn in.
Yes, I would like to.
And quickly to the chair, I just wanted to mention or remind that we did have a request for a continuance come in from a Bill Burwinkle with the Incline Place Condo Association to continue this hearing. So I don't know at what point you want to address that, but I just wanted to put that in as a reminder that they have submitted that request and it's at the board's discretion.
Okay, we can go ahead and deal with that now, if that is desired. I believe the entire board received that communication. Is that accurate? Did anyone have any questions on the application? And if not, would the the person who requested the continuance, I assume it would be allowable to let them speak briefly, Mr. Sturkey?
I think so, yeah. They if they wanted to say anything about their motion for a continuance, I think now would be an appropriate time. So Mr. Burwinkle, would you like to say anything about that or submit it on the writing?
Yes, thank you.
If you could raise your right hand, do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. I'm the president of the Incline Place Condominium Association, and the remarks we prepared and submitted within the timeline had come about after a meeting of the owners. And so I represent all the owners of Incline Place. And on August 2nd, I became aware that there were changes made to the documents that we made our decisions on. And so my request for an extension is for me to have an opportunity to call a meeting of the owners to discuss the changes so we can properly respond to our concerns about the project.
I do have a question for Mr. Owen and the staff. Did the applicants follow the required timelines? Could you give us a little more insight into what may have caused this request?
Yeah, the revised plan was submitted by the deadline for changes to the application that was added to the packet at that time. And the only change on those drawings, I believe, was the change from the metal siding material to the composite material.
Would anyone from the applicant like to respond?
I would.
Please, let's get you sworn in.
You solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. The changes we made to the siding material was in response to the letter that was submitted by the Incline condos. And so it's changing from a metal vertical siding to a more appropriate composite material that will be horizontal, in keeping with the addition of the house that was previously approved by the board. And we feel that any change that was made was in respect to the neighboring opposition and in hopes to work with them and hear their concerns.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Well, was there something else, Mr. Burwinkle, other than the siding? Did she accurately represent you there?
I believe there's also some change in some of the images, but I can't, I haven't gone through all the material.
Mr. Owen, is it safe to say that that is the only thing that has changed in the application?
I believe so. I mean, the site plans are the same. There's been no changes to the size of the accessory structure or its location or the landscaping around it. The only change that I saw was that siding material.
I do have a question. Who built the fence that's there now?
The owner. And we did want to come before the board today to talk about the fence and that we are willing to remove the solid fence and put an aluminum fence there instead to achieve the 50% opacity requirements. So that was another thing we wanted to discuss at the hearing today, since we kind of missed the deadline for updating the application.
And the retaining wall was built without a building permit?
I can address that if you like.
So I just want to make sure that we're staying within the context of the continuance request. Everyone will have an opportunity in the normal course to discuss the project and substance of the project, but we should keep this conversation tailored to whether or not we want to continue this at Mr. Burwinkle's request.
Well, and I raised my questions because it sounds like there's a number of things that are in the air. So I would support a continuance.
Mrs. Starkey, may I address that, please?
Chair's discretion on this.
Yes, you may. Let's get you sworn in first, though.
Do you solemnly swear the testimony you shall give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do. To answer the question about the retaining wall, all that was engineered, it was permitted, it was checked, it had special reports done, part of the requirements of the permit. So it was done to the city building inspection codes. Additionally, I'd like to add, after we decided, for not just purely the reasons Mr. Burwinkle asked, his list of 8 items, we had already looked at changing the siding because it matched the house better. So that was done already, and we submitted on time. Plus, once we did that, did not have an opportunity to talk to, there's actually 5 residents over in the condos. So I was able to talk to 3, and the 3 are aware of the changes as of last week. Also, all the residents local, besides Mr. Burwinkle, are aware of the siding change, so it's not a surprise. And the information was turned in according to the schedules that are required by the city.
Board questions or comments on the continuance matter?
Might I address the board?
Very briefly.
My only question is, if changes were made, why weren't all the people that were notified originally of the hearing, why weren't they made aware that there had been a change made?
Mr. Owen, could you please address that procedural question?
So there were no changes to the substance of the requests that were made as far as the zoning relief and the COA. It was still for the new construction of the structure as well as the same zoning relief. So there were no notices that were sent out in that regard.
Thank you.
Additional board questions or comments?
Mr. Mukic, or were you unaware that this piece of property was in a historic district?
No, we actually bought the property 5 years ago, so we've been going through the whole process.
I guess I'm wondering, why did you not get permission to build that retaining wall?
I think not to disagree, but we did get permission. We had
thought you
permits. No,
I
said
thought
we
you
had
said you
permits.
didn't,
No, I said we have permits. We followed all the permits. We had special reports done.
but you didn't come in front of the Historic Conservation Board.
It was part of our original plans.
But did you come before the Historic Conservation Board?
I think
Yes
that-
or no?
I would have to go back and see if we did that. It was a whole process which started 5 years ago. So I'll have to go back and see. We've been to multiple meetings, so.
If I may, the segmented block wall was on the original site plan that was approved by the Historic Conservation Board.
Okay.
Any questions or comments on the continuance matter? If not, I will entertain a motion on continuance only.
This could be a motion to approve or deny the continuance request.
Madam Chair,
Go ahead.
I make a motion to approve the continuance request.
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Roll on whether or not to approve, or on the motion to approve the continuance.
And that's for 14 days, is that correct? Half a month?
I think continuance is to get it rescheduled at whatever meeting the applicant is able to work with staff on. Is that correct, Mr. Sturkey?
I believe that the, excuse me, the request was for 14 days, and I'll have to ask Cassandra to chime in, but I believe that is something that we could accommodate as long as the applicant believes that that they can be prepared to present 14 days from now. Cassandra, is that right?
That's correct. And we have August 21st would be the next meeting, and September 11th would be the following meeting.
Can we get clarification on what we need to present?
Well, there's a motion on the floor that's been seconded, so I think we're at the point where we would need a vote.
I believe it would, Mr. Calby, my understanding would be that it would be to come back and present whatever you were going to present today at that subsequent hearing.
So we just need to represent what we were going to present today. Why wouldn't we just present today?
Mr. Burwinkle has requested a continuance because he does not believe that he's had ample amount of time to discuss with the condo association and the other members of the condo association the changes that came in late, particularly regarding the lap siding. So the request for continuance is so that you can have more time to discuss with those folks.
May I add something? This is to conform to, I'm sorry.
Yes, please, briefly.
Okay, this is to conform to one of their needs. So I'm not sure why it would need to be discussed if it was already their need and we're complying to it. It's, you know, so it's, that was the only change that was made. So we're conforming, but there's time needed to discuss it. So I'm not completely understanding why the extensions needed.
Sounds like the board has heard some things that they would like to allow more time for discussion on. But I will call the vote and we'll go from there and see what happens. Ms. Smith?
Yeah. Yes, aye.
Mr. Zelasco?
Aye.
Mr. Sunderman?
Aye.
Young?
Aye.
The chair votes no. I think it's unfortunate that, you know, it seems like there was, information that wasn't fully communicated. I believe though that the applicant has met the requirements. So I hope that your calendars will allow you to come back in 14 days. The motion for continuance is passed.
We'll reach out to the applicant and the owner on this to verify that 14 days will be appropriate, and then we'll send out a notice to everybody about the hearing.
Thank you. Is there any additional, are there additional items today?
No.
That being said, I will entertain a motion regarding dismissal.
So
Madam
moved.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Believe motion passes there, and we are adjourned.